Hi everyone, I'm Stuart Lawrence. I'm the founder of Mediator Locator. I'm a barrister, accredited mediator and adjudicator with more than 30 years of experience of dispute resolution. I run Mediator Locator, which is a national mediation referral service working across all sectors and covering the whole of the UK. We currently partner with 12 leading law firms and we're expanding our network all the time. Our panel includes 30 top mediators, all of whom are also qualified lawyers, many at senior partner level, with many years of experience behind them. Many of our mediators are also leading specialists in their respective fields, so with Mediator Locator, you're in safe and expert hands. We operate two panels. We have a primary panel for higher value and more complex disputes, and we have a set value panel for disputes up to £50,000 in value, offering fixed fees to give clients greater certainty. Mediation is all we do, and we're specialists in mediation. Like some providers, we're not just a directory, we actually select the mediator for you. So if you send us your requirements, we will specifically match you with the right mediator, taking the strain away from you in that process. The process is simple, flexible and hassle-free, and we offer both online and in-person mediations around the UK. We're all huge fans of mediation, and we definitely believe it's the future of dispute resolution. So today we're going to have a discussion about mediation in employment, and I'll be putting some questions to our panel of expert employment mediators. I'd like to welcome them this morning, and perhaps you can each introduce yourself. So Rachel, if you'd like to go first.
Hello, I'm Rachael Heenan. I'm the senior partner at Capsticks. I've also been an employment lawyer for 30 years. I've got loads of mediation experience in the employment field, workplace disputes, employment relation breakdowns, and employment litigation resolution. And I believe that mediation can actually be life-changing and help people to move on with their lives.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you, Rachel. And Marley, if you could introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yes, my name is Marley Smith and I'm a legal director at Wright Hassall. I'm practicing employment law for more than 20 years now. I have a master's degree in dispute resolution. I'm a qualified mediator and a qualified international commercial arbitrator. I'm practicing mediation and conciliation for many, many years now. I'm extremely passionate about mediation and believe that this is the way forward. This is the future.
Fantastic. Thank you both. I'm going to ask a series of questions now, and hopefully we can have an interactive discussion. So to start with you, Rachel, if I may. Why do so many workplace disputes spiral out of control in your view? And how can mediation early stop that from happening?
I think it's quite simple that people stop talking. Managers are not experienced in helping people have difficult conversations. They then get into a process which is hard for the employer to unpick. Employees take sides, they get stuck, they don't see different perspectives, they only see their own perspective. And I think mediation gives an opportunity to just breathe, air the grievances, nip things in the bud, and actually think about another person's perception of things without the stress and turmoil of going through any internal processes or an employment tribunal process, which doesn't help anyone. So in short, I think it helps with perspective and moves things on quicker than any sort of dispute.
Do you think it varies in the size of the company? Do larger corporations have a different approach to smaller corporations, or is it across the board fairly similar, would you say?
I think it's all about people and relationships.
Yeah.
And where that's broken down, trying to help them find a way out of it.
Okay, that's interesting. And if you're an HR representative working for one of these employers, what would you say is something you should always consider, always do before you start a mediation?
Think about what you're trying to achieve with the relationship. Think about whether, if the mediation works, this is genuinely something that will benefit the organisation and the individuals. And what outcome are you looking for? And then the mediators can just take it from there.
And do you think people come to these mediations with a lot of preconceptions, or are they open-minded in your experience?
I think so. I think they initially come thinking that we will give them a view that they're right. And obviously we have to start at the beginning and say, look, we're not judges. We're not here to make a decision. We're here to help you make a decision that's right for you and all the other parties.
Yeah. I mean, I heard you chuckle there, Marley. It sounds to me like you've had similar thinking.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I think one of the greatest thing in mediation is that it gives the parties the opportunity to find a solution that they, most of the time, they are causing the problems, the relationship broke down, and they have the opportunity to solve it. And I think every time they are completely surprised when they find out that actually no one is going to decide for them, and they have the power to decide for themselves where they want to take the dispute to.
Yeah, that's interesting. And what would you say, Marley, to the comment? Isn't mediation just a soft option? Where would you? What's your thoughts on the accountability of it?
Well, let's look at it, Stuart. When you say a soft option, yes, it's non-adversarial. Definitely, it's cooperative. No party is going to win. Nobody is going to be told that they are right or wrong. From this perspective, you can say yes, it is a soft option, but let's look at accountability. Really, every mediation can lead to agreement at the end of it. In my last mediation, the parties signed an agreement between themselves that they will improve the relationship. They will listen to each other, and they put many points of how to improve their relationship, which is absolutely fantastic. I had other mediation also resulted in settlement agreement, where the parties also again dictated the terms of the settlement agreement, and all what I had to do is to go over it and to advise them whether it will be enforceable in court or not. So yes, it is a soft option, but there is accountability as well.
Okay, and obviously, in mediation, the usual rule is the parties each pay their respective share, so the cost is shared. But does that change in mediation in the employment context? Because obviously you may well have a significant financial imbalance. What happens there, in your view?
In my view, in my experience, the employer pay for the mediation, not the parties themselves, but it's possible as well that the parties will pay for it.
And do you feel that if the employer is paying for the mediation, does that have any implications in regards to impartiality or not?
Certainly not. Absolutely not. The mediator is impartial. He's a third party. He has no interest in the outcome at all. The outcome is dictated by the parties in any way. So no, the answer to your question is no.
Okay,
absolutely
no, that's
not.
Great. Rachel, a question I have, be interested in your thoughts. Can mediation help someone who's already been dismissed or who's already resigned from their job, perhaps in a sort of constructive dismissal scenario?
I mean, absolutely. The beauty of mediation is it can be creative, much more creative than going to an employment tribunal. So you can come up with different ways to help them move forward, different options. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's career development. Nothing's really off the table, and that's the beauty of it.
Yes, that's certainly, and in my experience as well, Stuart, I had a dispute in mediation whereby the parties completely forgot about their dispute. It was abandoned halfway through, and they started discussing a new venture together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was employer and employee. During the mediation, he told him, I invented something new which is related to your business. Do you want to hear about that? I'm trying so much to do for you and for the business. And then suddenly the employer said, yes, you know what? Yes, okay, tell me about it. and they went on discussing a new venture together.
And you'd never get that scenario in a court litigation environment.
No. That's as Rachel saying. It's the creative part of mediation. That's a very important component of mediation.
Yeah, there's something quite magical in the mediation where, sometimes these people have not spoken for years, and you actually get them talking, and you take a step back as the mediator, and you get them co-creating something.
This is when you know the mediation is going to be successful, when you
or when they leave together, or when they leave together, that sort of thing.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's incredibly powerful, isn't it, that you can have the start of the day where there's acrimony. I mean, a lot of it's very human and misunderstandings and escalation. I mean, how would you deal with a situation where you've got this power imbalance that I mentioned before, where you might have a member of staff who's feeling perhaps harassed or put upon, and they're sat across the table from a senior manager, and they're going to end up working with that person on a day-to-day basis? How do you approach sort of breaking down that relationship? Is it communication, or is it more than that?
I think it's about helping both parties understand each other's position. So your job as a mediator is to support each party. So talk to the individual about what their concerns are and how we articulate that to the manager. Talk to the manager about how they might be perceived by the employee, and try and rebuild that sort of relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So go ahead, Molly, you were going to say?
Yes, I wanted to say that this situation arises quite often because mediation many times involved line managers and employees. So you have to respect the fact that the line manager is the manager, so not to make him feel like because he's come to mediation, he's not important and at the same level as the employee. But at the same time, you have to give them the platform where they can be honest with each other and state their position.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Quite often the manager has the same fears as the employee when you're doing your one-to-ones, because they're just human.
Yeah.
And actually they're worried about how they will be perceived in the organisation. Have they done? Humans in the most part are good-natured people, but they get stuck, don't they? And they need a bit of help out of that. But the manager's just an employee like everybody else. I think once you understand that, it sort of breaks down those barriers.
I had a line manager. Sorry, Stuart.
Go ahead.
I had a line manager who said, I didn't do anything about the dispute because I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to do. I was too embarrassed to go to HR and ask for advice.
And do you think that mediation, in your experience, has started at the right time? There's obviously a lot of these businesses will have fairly comprehensive processes. When would you best recommend you start a mediation? And do you think that mediations start too late quite often?
I think most of the time they do start too late. I think most of the time the manager feels unsupported. They're not, people become managers because they're good at the technical stuff, not because they're great managers or leaders. So they don't want to have the difficult conversations. I think and I know some organisations train their employees to be mediators, to have those sort of coaching conversations. And if you have it fairly early on, you'd save a whole load of money and angst on the part of everybody.
I mean, that's quite an interesting segue into another question, which is, what would you see is in it for the HR or the legal teams to use mediation rather than the formal disciplinary routes or perhaps even more litigious routes through the tribunal? What do you regard as the key advantages?
I think it's so much more cost effective, effectively a day fee. It'll cost you more to file a defence at an employment tribunal. It'll cost you more to have people out for the day at a grievance hearing or preparing for that, or with people off sick. It's just such a huge, if you've ever been involved in any sort of internal matters, it's just a distraction for so many people and not just the parties.
Yeah. I mean, the opportunity cost is huge. I mean, as I said at the start, a massive fan of mediation. The disruption from a particularly in any business for any type of dispute is huge, but in employment context, it can turn environments toxic. I mean, have you seen scenarios with your experience where you've seen a toxic situation turn around into something that, you know, is a viable and workable way forward?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, either Marley, maybe you answer first, and Rachel, perhaps you have some view afterwards. What do you say, Marley?
Yes, I actually had a couple of mediation whereby I had the whole department came for the mediation. In one of them, there were 11 people, and in another one, there were only 3 people, and it was because of the toxic relationship. And the problem was with one of the employees who went to and complained about the whole department, about everyone in the department, and they actually liked her very much, and they couldn't understand why she went to management instead of coming to them and talking to them. So only when they were able to express what they were upset about, instead of gossiping behind her back, how dare she to go and not come to talk to us. Only when this was revealed during the mediation, then the healing started. The toxic environment disappeared, if you like. Yeah.
Yeah. And Rachel, what about your thoughts on this?
It always surprises me, the ones that you think are never going to be resolved by the end of the day. You know, because people have options, don't they? If they don't sort it out, they would have to leave, and a lot of the time people enjoy their jobs.
Yes.
So they just want some help to get through it.
And
yes.
And just sort of turning it round on its head, what do you think's the worst way to begin a mediation? I mean, you must see quite a lot of scenarios where people do things and you metaphorically roll your eyes and think, oh God, you know, what happens in those moments for you, and what examples can you give of when that happens? Putting you on the spot now.
I've seen some mediators do it badly.
Okay.
You know, try and push through a commercial deal early on without respecting the space, without allowing people the time to work through it, because it's quite an emotional process. I've seen some mediators do it badly. I can't think of an example of where. The other thing about mediation, you've got to roll with it and be quite creative as the mediator on the day. So there's a couple of circumstances. Well, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to help with that? I had a business where they spent the first sort of hour shouting at each other, and at the end I just said quietly, so why are you in business together? And it sort of turns out they actually needed each other. The business wasn't ready to sell at that point.
Right.
Yeah,
there's always something different. Yeah.
You know, I started a couple of mediations, Stuart, by completely not talking about the dispute at all, but just help them to remember why they are still in this job and what did they like and what they like with the other person. And they started reminiscing and remembering things and seeing the positive in the working environment and in the management and what it's doing for them. And I think bringing some positivity into the table help them to deal with the dispute. That it's not all bad, you know.
And what would you say in terms of timing? What's a typical time frame for a mediation in the employment context, or is there a typical time frame?
Well,
tends to be a day. I've done teams before in a day. There's another way of doing it where you do agenda items for big teams, and you do sort of an agenda item a day. But you know, people always say to me, what time will I be finished? And I always say, well, that's a matter for you, isn't it? As to what you agree. So yeah, typically less than a day.
Yeah.
Okay. And
I book it from 10. Sorry, I book it from 10 to 4. That's it. And I'm telling them that we have to sort out the matter between 10 and 4.
Yeah.
Which is usually very successful because we have a framework. But I had a mediation where it took longer because we had to draft a mediation agreement as well.
Oh, okay.
Not a settlement agreement at the end of it, so it took longer.
But typically the mediator doesn't necessarily do the settlement agreement. They'll agree the heads of terms. But
Yes.
what happened in that situation where you were involved in the settlement agreement?
The parties themselves wrote the agreement at the mediation session. I didn't write the settlement agreement, they have, but it was during the mediation session, because it was important for them that I will be present while they are drafting it.
Just to make sure that it was accurately recorded and there was no misunderstandings. Okay, now I can see the sense of that.
And as far as possible, whilst you've got them in the room, get the agreement, because, you know.
Yes, absolutely. I also wanted very much to be there while they are drafting it, you know. Yes.
Yeah. And okay. Marley, start with you. What role does confidentiality play in mediation? I mean, one of the things that strikes me as really important, you know, for large companies or any company really, is reputational elements are very key. So one of the beauties of mediation is the confidentiality. How important do you feel that is, and what role do you think it takes?
I think you just picked up one of the most important matters in mediation. This is extremely important to keep everything that's been said in the mediation has to remain between the mediator and the parties, and between the parties themselves. I had situation where they asked me many times, what are you going to tell the employer? Can I feel comfortable enough with you, and things like that? And I reassured them multiple times throughout the session, you know, the mediation sessions, that everything that is said in the mediation remain among the three of us. And I had another situation whereby one of the employees, he wanted to go and to tell to HR what happened in the mediation, so they will know as well. You know, they will know and I said, without the agreement of the other participants in the mediation, he can't go and tell anyone about anything, that this is 100% confidential. Yes, absolutely.
I mean, quite often I get an agreement of what we're going to tell people outside the mediation, because there are some things around career development or coaching that we will need support from the organisation. So we always have written in what, you know, who's agreed to do what.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely confidentiality is a cornerstone of employment mediation, and the purpose of it is to provide the parties a safe space where the communication can be open, you know, fostering good relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you'll be aware that there's quite a lot of employment amendments coming down the track from the government. And we already know, I think, to go through the litigation route, I think, Marley, you wrote an article on this some time ago, you go through litigation, tribunals take an absolute age. It's probably 12 months maybe before you before a tribunal, if not more.
Yes.
And the costs can be huge. And obviously with the legislation that the government's proposing, there's going to be even more pressure on an already massively overburdened system. So my thinking is that there's an opportunity here to mediate, because from what you've said, you've got much more creative solutions, you've got much more opportunity to better resolve disputes. Why on earth would anybody ever want to litigate? What are your thoughts on that?
Not to mention that the outcome in litigation is unknown up until the last minute. Why would you go to litigation while in 1 day mediation, which is normally 8 hours, you can dictate yourself the outcome? So I think with the government new legislation, especially allowing to claim unfair dismissal for the first day, I think we will see a huge boost for mediation, really.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to bear in mind is that even if you win in an employment tribunal, unlike the other courts, you don't get your costs.
Yeah,
so you still have to bear your own costs, and quite often people will win an amount, but their legal costs have far outweighed what they've got from the tribunal.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
What's sort of one thing, if you could say one thing, each of you, that you wish people knew about employment mediation, they don't really know, what would that be? Sort of one real message for the value of employment mediation.
That it can sort the issue out that you have been worrying about for months and years in a day, so you can move on.
And then you wake up the next morning and you can look to the future. Yeah. Marley, what about you? Same thing or something different?
Absolutely. I want people to know that they have the power to resolve their own disputes, that in the workplace, we are all of us adults. You don't need someone to tell you whether you are right or wrong. All what you need to do to have is a platform where you can express your feelings, and a safe place you can express your feelings, what is the dispute from your point of view, and what is the solution that you're looking for. So I think treating people, all employees, as adults is the way forward, really.
Yeah. And just a follow-up question, if you were an employer or an employee and you were looking to mediate, what would you be looking for in selecting an employment mediator? I mean, obviously, at the core of what we do at Mediator Locator is we recommend skilled mediators like yourself and Rachel, but what would you recommend people look for when they're choosing a mediator?
Yeah, that's actually not a very easy question, isn't it, Rachel?
I think it's when you do the pre-meet with the parties, it's really important that they trust you early on, that they know that what they say to you is going to be confidential. So someone that they think they can trust, that is not going to mess them around, but will also be constructive and push them a little bit, and open and honest, but recognizing that they'll also push the other side. And I think that's critical when you know, that chemistry introduction or the chemistry meeting is really, really important. And it will depend on the nature of the dispute as well. I mean, some people think it'd be better getting, you know, the fact that we're employment lawyers of however many years doesn't really come into it in the mediation, because we're not here to decide who's right and wrong. But I can certainly tell people if they've got an overinflated sense of what they might get at an employment tribunal, and that's when it becomes useful. So a bit of no-nonsense talking always helps, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a huge value in that. I mean, you know, you're right. To be a good mediator, you don't necessarily have to have that legal qualification sitting behind you. But having said that, if you do have that, and when people come to these sessions and you engage in the reality testing, and the fact that you've got the experience as to what would be an overinflated expectation, that's a huge value, because if nothing else, people get a realistic expectation of what's going to come out of this, and that will then help structure discussions towards settlement.
But also helps manage their lawyers to a certain extent, you know.
Yeah, which is never easy to do. Okay, just a final question, and then I think we'll wrap it up. But how do you both feel that mediation can support changes in workplace culture, not just conflict resolution? I mean, I'm keen to see if companies would have mediation embedded in their culture. I'm a big believer in mediation first. And you know, you talked about the costs, and it's so much cheaper than the alternatives. How would you seek to embed mediation into a company's culture, and what sort of role do you think it would play for them?
I think it's about becoming part of a coaching culture. You know, we're very scared about giving feedback, aren't we, and how to give feedback well. But if you do it, it's like a muscle. If you do it lots of times, it becomes easier, and people feel safe around it. So I think mediation can be part of having a great performance-related coaching culture in an organisation. And then when you're raising things with people, they won't take umbrage, they won't put a grievance in, they'll just have a conversation with each other and then move on to the next thing.
Yeah, amazing. Marley, any thoughts on that?
Yes, definitely. Mediation is a very, very powerful tool for supporting workplace culture change. Certainly, because it can extend beyond just resolving specific disputes. Mediation can be used also to facilitate open communication, trust, promote collaborative problem solving. It can create a more inclusive, respectful environment. So yes, I think mediation can be used for a cultural change in a workplace. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean that's been really fantastic. Thank you both. I mean, I think what's come across to me listening to the answers, the excellent answers, is that mediation is such a great choice for resolving employment issues. It's going to save everybody time, money, aggravation. It's going to improve relationships, and it's going to lead to much more harmonious dealings going forward. And what I would like to say is firstly, thank you to you both for those answers. To people listening, you can see from the answers given by both Marley and Rachel, quality of the mediators we have the privilege of having on our panel at Mediator Locator. And if you need a mediator of any stripe, do please get in touch. But if you have a mediation request for an employment matter, you know, Marley and Rachel are both available, as are others who are all very competent, clearly great communicators. And I couldn't recommend Mediation and Rachel and Marley to you highly enough. So do get in touch. The address is mediatorlocator.com. If you have any questions, do feel free to get in touch, and do come to us for your mediations. I promise you'll be glad you did. Thank you once again, and see you both soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.